Hey, well, welcome everyone. Sorry, again, we're late. One of these days, I think I'll actually get on time. However, today, much like yesterday, I had just an issue. Woke up this morning and floor was covered with water, and it turns out I need a new water heater. So we were out at Lowe's picking one of those up, or excuse me, Home Depot picking one of those up, and that's why we're kind of running late today. But um, while we were out, it kind of made me think of what I was going to talk about. I had something else planned, but I thought I would come and talk to you a little bit about this something else related to what we said yesterday, but also related to things that are going on with the coronavirus and all of that. You see a lot of people out, and a lot of people don't simply seem to be taking it very serious, and they have their different reasons and their different beliefs and all of that about it. One thing we do know for sure, however, is that there are folks who fall in a certain age group who seem to be getting this more readily than others, and it's very dangerous for them to be out and about, and it's dangerous for people to go out and about, and then perhaps contract it, not know they contact it, and then come in contact with these people and spread the illness that way. And to us, it might seem, frivolous that we are, limited in what we can do. It might seem frivolous that we, can't go to the beach. It might seem, please stop the. Hey, it might seem frivolous that we can't go to the beach and do these other activities, but do we respect these folks who are susceptible to it and limit ourselves because we have a respect for them? It kind of reminded me of our discussion yesterday where we were talking about David and how David faced his giant and Goliath, and he not only stared him down but took him down. But David, of course, is an interesting character. Has a lot of interesting stories, and the one of the ones that I remember that kind of reminds me of the things that are going on now has to do with David and his flight from King Saul. You remember David killed his 10,000s and Saul only killed his thousands, and he became very jealous of David. And he tried to spear him against the wall a couple of times, and then he causes David to flee. And at one point, David and his mighty men, or what would become his mighty men, are resigned to living in caves, basically. And at one occasion, Saul, who's pursuing him, ends up in the cave that David is dwelling in. And he's there to relieve himself. Basically, he takes a time out and he goes to the bathroom. And while he's in the cave, without even realizing it, David is just right there next to him. And he's so close, he even has the opportunity to reach out and cut the hem of his garment off. And he doesn't stand up and say anything. He doesn't, harm, the king at all. He just waits till the king leaves, waits until he gets a certain distance from the cave, and then shouts out to him, basically saying that, he could have harmed him. He could have, reached out, taken the same knife, and took Saul's life. But he makes this statement about respect, really. He says that he has respect for God's anointed. God, appointed Saul. God had put him in that place, and it wasn't David's place to question that. It wasn't David's place to do anything other than be respectful. At times like this, where there's just a lot of crisis, where we're called not to do certain things, and yet there seems to be no immediate consequence for us to, jump that tape that wouldn't hold anybody back, that's there at that beach access, and go on the beach. That it's real easy just simply to do that. It's nothing stopping you from, going out to places that the, government and the authorities that, we're told in Romans 13, God has put in place, have told you not to go. It's real easy because there doesn't seem to be any immediate and natural, consequence because of that. But are we being respectful when we do that? Or do we have that same attitude that David had? Now, remind yourself, or be reminded that David is the king after God's own heart. David was a man who, though he always didn't, well, he didn't always act in a way that was righteous. As a matter of fact, many ways he acted in very unrighteous ways. He certainly wasn't being righteous when he, committed a sin with Bathsheba or killed her husband Uriah, or, tried to cover it up. So the prophet Nathan has to come and tell him this story and call him, "You are the man," right? None of that seems to show a certain amount of respect for God and his law and his authority. And yet, in this case, when it came to Saul and when it came to, his anointed, when this earlier part of, David's life, before he himself becomes king and before he finds himself in his own, unique challenges, being the leader of a nation, David has this strength of conviction about, doing God's will, about being respectful to the commands, even when, it would have benefited David in some physical way to have rose up and slain Saul. I mean, David had already been appointed and anointed as king. But while Saul was still alive, he was to have a respect for him. And that's the way that he saw it. So I guess in this time of crisis, and maybe we don't even see it as a crisis, but we should, in the very least, see it as an opportunity for us to show respect for the people who are around us who are susceptible to this illness, to show respect for those who are older than we are, to show respect for our society, our government, and the people who are trying to play an integral part in stopping this thing, calming the spread of it, and sometimes the attitudes that go along with it. It's a shame that the origins, the country from which this came from, did not have enough respect for the other countries in the world to actually be honest about what was taking place, when it was taking place, how big it had become, and even to this day just simply does not want to be honest about the numbers, about how it's affected their culture, their society, and those things. We cannot do any good by keeping those things under wraps, but more so, it's just a deep disrespect that we show to the other nations in the world when we choose to keep those things undercover, when we choose not to expose them and act in ways that actually end up hurting people around the world. I mean, think of it this way. It's estimated that 95% of the spread could have been stopped had we known about it a month earlier. Think about the people who maybe we know or that we know who have been touched with it, who've become very ill, or maybe have lost their lives. I mean, could their life have been saved if someone just showed a little more respect for the other people around them? Now, again, I think that requires some of the same ingredients that we talked about yesterday. And it requires a deep sense of humility. It requires us knowing, what our place is in this world and what our obligations are as human beings, as the creation of God, man made in His image. We are called to have that respect for life, the basic fundamental belief that everybody that God has made was put here on purpose and should be respected by each and every one of us. Now, let's look at it in a positive way. Is there disrespect that's happening? Sure there is. Are there people out there who are not paying attention and just are not giving this outbreak the sense of urgency that it should receive and a sense of seriousness? Sure. But there are a lot of folks who are not doing those negative things. As a matter of fact, they're doing the opposite. They're using it as an opportunity to get out, to encourage people where they can in a safe environment, using internet, live feeds, different things of that nature, just to reach out to people that they otherwise wouldn't have reached out to because, well, they respect them. They respect them. They respect the fact that they are susceptible. They respect the fact that they are trying to overcome and be a part of the solution rather than be a part of the problem. So, how are we showing that respect to the people who are around us? Now, yesterday I encouraged you to reach out and encourage somebody. Today, we kind of get to the heart of why we do that. We typically don't reach out and encourage and strengthen the people that we don't have respect for. Now maybe we would have respect if we just simply took that first step and did it anyhow. But we can certainly show our respect for especially these older folks who can't get out of their homes and put themselves in peril when they do. We certainly show our respect for them when we reach out to them, let them know they are important, let them know that they are needed, let them know that we care about them and love them. And that's what I want to encourage you to do today. Whether it's taking a little video and texting it to them, whether it's logging onto their Facebook and sending them a message, whether it's picking up a phone and calling them if they're a totally kind of unplugged individual, do something today that's going to reach out into your church family, reach out into your work family, reach out to your blood family, and encourage them and strengthen them, because you have this deepest respect for them, the things that they've helped you with in your life, the things that they've helped you accomplish. So reach out to them today. This is your daily dose. This is your daily bit of encouragement. This is what we would certainly like to see each and every one do. I appreciate your time today. We'll see you tomorrow, maybe on time.